Welcome back. This review is a bit late, as Zelos was kind enough to send me their bronze swordfish at the very tail end of July, and I was planning on having a review of this done at the very end of last month, but a few things kind of got in the way, including the new stainless version of the swordfish that they're also kind enough to send in. When it really comes to microbrands, Zelos is known as a company who is really doing it right, and they're offering a lot of value to their customers. And the first version of the swordfish was really one of their most popular models. So it's not really a surprise that they decided to update the line this year with both a new stainless and this new bronze version. And when they reached out and asked if I would like to see them, I immediately said yes, as I've never had one of their watches before. And this seems like a great way to experience what would likely be one of the more popular watches this year. But we have a lot to cover, so let's just jump right in. Size-wise, we are looking at a 42mm watch without the crown and 45 width, along with a 48mm lug-to-lug length. So I think the swordfish here really falls into line with many popular divers out there. And style-wise, well, I think the case is very reminiscent of a smaller Seiko Samurai, as it's defined primarily by these modern geometric angles that are just jutting out of the metal. But even with all those angles, the case finishing is pretty good here, and I didn't find too many sharp edges on this one, even on the back, where you can clearly see the stainless embossed case back. The thickness of the swordfish is sitting right around 13.5mm, which I think is really average for divers these days. Yet when you look at the edge on this one, you'll notice that it's a solid wall of bronze just rising up to meet the bezel, which gives it a very tall and solid appearance. And that also translates into a rather solid feel in the hand at 125 grams, and that's with a rubber strap. I think the case shape here really plays well with the bronze look of the case, and when you combine that with the very wide gold-colored hands on the dial, I think it really just gives the whole thing a bit of an Art Deco feel. Just like its stainless cousin, it does have primarily a brushed finish, except for a few key angles that are polished, such as the top of the crown guards and the top inside angle of the lugs. And I think that really helps define and accentuate the case shape. Yet with this bronze version, as time goes on and the patina develops, it gets harder and harder to tell what was polished and what was brushed. And that is one thing I do want to point out here. Most of these shots were done when I first got the watch, and I only have a handful of more recent ones. In looking at the two, I think it does make a difference. And I think that's also one thing that really makes buying a bronze watch a bit harder, as you might like the look of it new, but might not like how it looks after the patina has developed, or even vice versa. And in my case, I think the look of the watch here has really improved as it's aged. To be honest, I was actually a little skeptical of it when I first got it, as I didn't think the dark blue of the ceramic bezel really looked good against that golden bronze case. Yet as the patina has developed, I think it looks much better now with that little bit of a duller tone. Along the same lines, there is another area that I really didn't like when I first saw the watch, but I think got better as time went on. And you can see it as you look closer at the bezel, where you see these flat edges as it meets the case, where there's a small ledge that just creates a gap between the edge of the case and the bezel insert. Now this does exist on the stainless version, but there I barely noticed it. It was just another geometric angle that blended into the overall design. Yet on this bronze version, I think it was very obvious, and it's something I really didn't like. It just made it look like it was a bronze or copper nut, something you'd find in the plumbing section of the hardware store. Yet as the patina developed, it stopped being as reflective, and I think blended more into the overall design. And now I just barely notice it. Now, speaking of the bezel, here it's kind of a mixed bag. It's 120 click and unidirectional as you would expect. There's a very slight overhang over the case, but not much, and there's notches every 5 minutes on it, but otherwise it's actually rather smooth. When turning it, it just has this great action with a very nice audible click, and there's a little but almost no backplay to it. Yet there is a bit of resistance when you try to turn it, and when you combine that with not much of an edge to really grab onto, I think it makes it rather difficult to turn, especially when you're wearing it. But I should point out that the stainless version is a little bit easier to turn, so this might just be something odd with the one I got. Now, as you would expect on a 300-meter diver, there is a signed screw-down crown as well, which I think looks a tad oversized, but I think it's perfect for the case as a whole, as it makes it very easy to unscrew and just manipulate. And also, bonus points for the logo being upright. There's a flat sapphire crystal that winds up covering the sandwich dial, and it's a dial that I think is uniquely Zelos, which in some ways is really a simple design, but highly effective and honestly very cool looking. This version is the Cobolt blue, and it's a gradient dial that goes from a blue-gray at the center to just black at the edges, along with these very large cutouts for the hour indicators. The cutouts are all wedges of different widths, and they narrow as they head towards the center, which I think makes the design very symmetrical and eye-catching. And I really like the double wedge at the top that instantly helps you identify what's up, even in the darkness. There's a minimal painted chapter ring that takes up the space between the cutouts. But otherwise, the dial is rather simple, with some small text at the bottom and the Zelos logo applied in gold at the top. The hands here are a bit unique, and I'm not really sure what to call them. They're overly wide, and I definitely think they're going to be polarizing for some. In some ways, the minute hand almost looks like a Mercedes hand that was stretched out into a stick. But whatever you want to call them, they're very easy to read and use. Especially with that rose gold trim and the white center, they're just really easy to pick up against the dark background. And I think when you look at them as part of the design as a whole, I think it does really blend in and work. It just seems to fit in with the case shape and the really long indicators. Though my favorite part here is the second hand, and I love how it extends out to the very edge of the chapter ring with just a very fine red tip. It's just a small splash of needed color. There is no date on this version, but there is a date version available, although it also comes with an upgraded ETA movement with an upgraded price. And here there is a ghost date for anyone who cares about that. Overall, I like the dial. It's just a very unique take. I was initially resistant to the color, but I quickly fell in love with it, especially as that patina has developed. I think it's a great alternative to your standard blue, and it just always looks fantastic in every picture I've taken. But what I really like is the design itself, as it's a simple but effective way of making a very clean symmetrical dial, yet one that is very visually distinctive, but with a touch of depth. And it's also a way that creates a very large amount of surface area for the Lume, something the Swordfish takes full advantage of. The Lume here is just simply fantastic, and regardless of what you think is the minute hand in the light, I think everyone will love how it looks here. And I also just really love the blue BGW9 on the second hand. And there appears to be just a small amount of that blue Lume on the chapter ring for the minute indicators, but it's pretty hard to see at times. Although if I'm being honest, I actually like the Lume on the stainless version much better, as the chapter ring there is just fully loomed out with that blue Lume. But with the bronze version, I ran 2 comparison tests, and I really wanted to put it up against some great divers, so I put it up against a Seiko Turtle, a Helm Komodo, and a Phoebus Wavemaster. And after 40 minutes, everything was still clearly visible on every watch, so there's no distinct winner here. But I took it up a notch. I took it out to 2.5 hours and swapped the Wavemaster for the current king of Lume at my house, which is the Great Wall. And in the end, I think the Great Wall here is still undefeated, but it's very close. And I think the Swordfish is just a tad brighter than the Helm Komodo. So, as I said, the Lume here is awesome, and it just won't disappoint. Movement-wise, we have the standard workhorse, which is a Seiko NH35a. Although, as I said, there is an upgraded version available. But here, we have a standard beat rate, hacking, and hand winding with a 40-hour power reserve. Basically, it's everything you need. And I was also really impressed with the accuracy on this one, as I was only losing about 2.5 seconds a day. But to be fair, I should point out that I was also very disappointed with the accuracy of the stainless version, as I was gaining almost 30 seconds a day there. So it's kind of 2 extremes for what you'd consider to be in spec, and really just goes to show you that there's a lot of range in the accuracy of these movements. Now, there's one conversation we've had before, and I'll touch on here as well, and that has to do with the Seiko movement at this price and above. And as I said before, there's nothing really wrong with that. Seiko sells plenty. But in the world of micro brands, this is kind of on the high end of where you would see that movement. Now, as for the straps, this actually comes with 2. The main strap is this black rubber strap with white stitching. It's a good quality strap, and might be one of the best rubber straps I've run across. And I really love the cool signed bronze buckle here. Now, while wearing this watch, I primarily used it with this strap. And as good as it is, I just never really warmed up to it. I think it's a bit stiff, and never really felt overly comfortable. Not to mention, I think it's a tad long. And there's always a little bit of a struggle when putting it on or taking it off, as it's a little bit of a tight fit as you feed it through the keepers, and always just a little bit of friction. So in the end, the strap I've switched it to was the other one it came with, which is this brown Horween leather strap. And here, well, generally I just love Horween straps. It's nice and thick and really doesn't have any break-in period at all, so it's comfortable right from the get-go. And I really like the logos that are burned in on the inside as well. The only downside with this strap is that it does come with a stainless buckle instead of bronze, which I think is a little bit of an oversight. And you can see a little bit of a scratch on that strap, so it's very noticeable and was a little disappointing. But the same strap did come with a stainless version, and it's perfectly fine. That Horween strap also has a quick release, which is always appreciated. But the rubber strap that it came with does not, which I think is really a missed opportunity, as the two of them together really seems like a great travel pair. Regardless of what strap you choose, the Swordfish is rather comfortable to wear, even if it does wear a bit tall thanks to its case. But I think it's very manageable, and that case shape just really gives the watch a great presence. As for the price, well, they're currently sitting at $349, although I should point out that right now most of the variants are sold out. But overall, I think the price is rather fair for everything you're getting. It's a very well-made, solid diver with a unique design, sapphire crystal, great lume, plus 2 straps. So it's a real solid choice, especially if you want a bronze diver. In fact, I can't really think of another bronze diver in this price range. Although even with that, I think there is one good question as to why it's the same price as the stainless version, especially when that stainless comes with a bracelet. Regardless, I think the bronze Swordfish is a great choice for anyone looking to add a bronze diver to their collection, which does explain why a lot of them are already sold out. And I do have to commend Zelos on just a great variety of different dial colors, including some very bold choices. There really is just something here for everyone. And if you do love this look, then just keep an eye out for when they do come back in stock. Although if I'm being honest, I actually do prefer the stainless version over the bronze. I just think that the overall case design looks better in stainless, especially with the solid end links of the bracelet. But I don't think you can go wrong with either. Zelos has developed a reputation for building some great, solid, well-built divers, yet still being affordable, and it's a reputation that is well-deserved. But let me know in the comments what you think about the bronze Swordfish, or if you actually prefer the stainless. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for joining me.